Welcome to this brief video about political philosophy, the Enlightenment, the American founding and Declaration of Independence, and political culture. In the late 18th century, three different political philosophies, liberalism, republicanism, and conservatism, converged to influence both the American Revolution and the French Revolution. Republicanism was an ancient political philosophy originating in Athens and Rome, a philosophy that was revived during the Renaissance, later became influential during the English Civil War, and then in the American colonies prior to the American Revolution. Republicanism promotes civic virtue and active political participation. The philosopher Aristotle argued that a human being could only live up to their full potential if they participated in the affairs of the community, if they were active in self-government with others. This is a philosophy that became influential to founders like Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson didn't want citizens to simply pursue their narrow personal self-interest. He wanted them to be concerned with the general welfare, the common good of the entire society. This is what Republican virtue is. It's an approach to politics where one transcends their self-interest to think about the common good. Unlike republicanism, liberalism was a distinctly modern philosophy that promoted individual freedom and limited government. Unlike republicanism, liberalism does not require or promote that the individual pursue the common good over their self-interest, but rather places self-interest front and center as the most important thing. The individual freedom that liberalism promotes includes freedom of speech, freedom of religion, economic freedom in the marketplace to compete, to profit. And this is why liberalism promotes limited government. Government should be limited in order to maximize individual freedom without unnecessary government intervention. Because liberalism develops largely in opposition to things like feudalism, aristocracy, monarchy, state religion, it also promotes equality to a much greater degree than previous political philosophies. And there's always been a tension within liberalism between its promotion of freedom and equality. Those two ideals will conflict. Not only is there an inherent tension within liberalism between liberty and equality, there are real differences between liberalism and republicanism. Republicanism asks the individual to think about what's good for the community. Liberalism insists that the community has no right to restrict the individual's freedom in the name of the common good. Yet, both of these philosophies were very influential during the American founding. The U.S. Constitution is a liberal document in that it limits government in the name of protecting and promoting individual freedom, but framers like Jefferson wanted citizens to bring Republican virtue to bear on their liberal system of government. The values and the norms of the citizenry matter as well as the government design. Conservatism is a political philosophy that is formed in opposition to late 18th century liberalism. Conservatism is a response to the radicalism and the violence of the French Revolution. Conservatives began to argue that fast-paced, revolutionary change was destructive to tradition and continuity and predictability. Conservatism was a political philosophy formed in opposition to the French Revolution and the perceived excesses of liberalism and republicanism. Conservatives such as Edmund Burke, a member of the British Parliament, began to promote incremental, gradual reform as preferable to fast-paced, reckless change. Whereas liberals may be tearing down existing hierarchies in order to promote equality, and Republicans may be dreaming up utopian perfection, conservatives were very skeptical about government's ability to solve big problems, and that skepticism towards government continues to influence American politics today. So where do all of these seemingly conflicting political philosophies come from? They arise out of the European Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was an intellectual and philosophical movement that was based on rationalism and empiricism. The idea that you could use human reason to interrogate existing political systems, existing ideas. Enlightenment political philosophers such as Montesquieu from France and John Locke from England begin to analyze existing political systems and evaluate the justifications for political authority. The result is new ideas about how governments should be organized and where political power should come from. Things like absolute monarchy and the divine right of kings are going to be challenged. Think of an absolute monarch as possessing executive, legislative, and judicial power. All of the political power resides in one place with one person or one small group of people. Montesquieu promotes separation of powers, a more limited monarchy like the one you see in England, where the king formally shares power with Parliament. John Locke begins to criticize divine right theory using social contract theory. He uses the social contract to explain where government originally comes from and where government's power comes from. Why does government have the power that it has? Where does that power come from? Social contract theory says it comes from the people, popular sovereignty. Social contract theory imagines a time before government exists, what they call the state of nature, where everyone is absolutely free to do whatever they want. In this state of nature, John Locke insists you have natural rights. There are rights that you possess by virtue of the fact that you are human, rights that you have before the existence of government. According to Locke, these natural rights are life, liberty, and property. In the state of nature, you have the right to preserve your life, to live how you want, and to acquire property. The problem is that everyone else is free to do whatever they want, absent law enforcement or law. They can take your stuff if they like it. Your rights are not secure, not protected. Because your natural rights are insecure in the state of nature, this is why everyone comes together to form government. They form government through a social contract. Everyone agrees to give up some of their freedom in exchange for security. You can no longer do whatever you want, but you now have property rights. It's against the law for someone to try to murder you. This idea is the basis of liberalism as a political philosophy. It is the idea that government is limited because government was created simply to protect your natural rights, the rights that you already had prior to the creation of government. This is government's job. If it tries to do anything beyond that, you have the right to fight back, to change laws. You are allowed to fight back and to criticize government and to make changes because government, under this idea of the social contract, government only has the power that the people have consented to give it. The people are the sovereign. Popular sovereignty. All political authority is derived from the people. The government is limited to those things the people want it to do. Not only is liberalism and republicanism evident during the American founding, but social contract theory is present explicitly in the Declaration of Independence. The preamble justifying the war for independence uses social contract theory to make the case that the colonists are justified in waging this war. The Declaration is the founding document of the American political tradition, the first statement of America's democratic creed. And while it does use social contract theory to promote a liberal view of government, a limited government, republicanism is still present in the document as well. We can see this when we look at the list of grievances and the rhetorical choices that are made. The list of grievances does not read as an anti-government or anti-big government declaration. It reads more as a self-government and good government declaration. The colonists do not want to destroy government as such. They want to become the government themselves. What the colonists know for sure is that they will not have a monarchy. So it makes sense to scapegoat the monarch and attack the monarch. No taxation without representation is not an anti-government or individual rights issue. It is a communal self-government issue. No taxation without representation doesn't mean no taxes. It means we want to make tax policy. The use of social contract theory is still present in the list of grievances. Because George III has violated the colonists' natural rights, he has now severed the social contract that existed between them. And by doing so, he has plunged everyone back into the state of nature, where the colonists are now going to form a new social contract.
The American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence are the application of these new Enlightenment ideas. The United States will not have a monarchy, an aristocracy, or a state religion. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion will be foundational individual rights that the government should not infringe upon in the name of some other common good.
A little over a decade later, the French Revolution will take place, influenced by liberalism and republicanism as well. But in the French Revolution, republicanism, the pursuit of the common good, the ability of the community to possibly infringe on individual rights, that will be taken much, much further and reflects the different political cultures you see today. The United States and France are both republics where the people are sovereign. They are both liberal democracies where you have limited government that prioritizes individual rights and equal opportunity. But in France, the community is much more likely to regulate the individual in the name of the common good. In the United States, we have a more individualistic political culture. Individuals typically are unwilling to have their freedom restricted in the name of some communal good. This is related directly to things like tax policy. How much are you willing to be taxed in order to pay for things collectively? The important thing to notice is that there's a wide spectrum within the liberal tradition. Within the United States, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party are both liberal in this philosophical sense of being committed to freedom of expression, freedom of religion, and limited government. But liberal democracies can vary in the size of their welfare states.